Crypto has entered a new era. Donald Trump has launched an official meme coin. We might see Bitcoin reserves of the US government. And with it, various altcoins are going up and Solana is reaching new all-time highs. Now let's have a look at the macro cycle. How much higher could we go in Bitcoin? How much higher could we go in the altcoins? Let's look at the data most people are not considering. So here's the news of the day. Donald Trump is launching its own meme coin, and initially people thought this was actually a hack because it sounded too good to be true. The token, of course, is currently making one high after the next. There's simply so much demand. We can only hope that the price will stay elevated for a while, because if the token crashes by say 80 or 90%, then people might be questioning Trump's approach to crypto. And that would of course not be that great. But so far everything looks good. According to Polymarket, there's now a 60% chance that the US government will hold Bitcoin in their reserve starting in this year. With the Trump meme coin launch, Solana has hit a new all-time high. It's now above $270. And there seems to be a clear move towards Solana and away from Ethereum. Ethereum is likely going to be the loser in this cycle. It's likely going to underperform the rest. What we've got over here is the Solana dominance. And unfortunately, we are very close to all-time highs and there is a bit of volatility. If we are not continuing with this current momentum, we could temporarily underperform by roughly 30%. But here's what's so interesting with this move. We see Bitcoin's dominance going up and not going down. That's interesting because usually during an altcoin rotation, when people think the market is already very hot, then people simply go to more risk on assets and then Bitcoin's dominance should be going down. But this seems to be an expansion across the market. And so we don't see Bitcoin's dominance going down. It's rather staying steady. Currently, the Trump token is simply just taking away liquidity from the smaller altcoins. It's not taking away liquidity from Bitcoin or from Solana, rather the opposite. Now, what does this mean for the macro cycle, right? Because we all know that crypto in general tends to move in 4-year cycles. What is currently the risk? When everything looks so bullish, there of course needs to be also some kind of a bearish case, even though that might not be hyper likely. There is the bearish case. How much risk is there? What we've got over here is the realized price of Bitcoin, the market value to realized value Z-score. So the average cost basis of the market. How much is the market in aggregate currently in profit? Because the more we are in profit, the more that profit might get taken at some point. The average cost basis is at 41.4 thousand. So the market in aggregate is more than 2x in profit. And the best time historically is to, of course, always buy when the market is in losses or when the current price is below the realized price. That was here during the minor collapse in 2019. This was here during COVID. And this was here after the FTX collapse. We don't get these chances very often. We only get them every 3 to 4 years. And maybe we have to wait another year or two until we hit that realized price. But this seems to be more or less the magnitude of potential negative volatility. So let's work with the bearish case, right? Let's say suddenly the Trump token crashes for whatever reason, be it market manipulation or be it simply because there's not enough new buyers there and there's a lot of insider selling. Let's say the Trump token suddenly crashes by 80 or 90%. What could happen? Maybe Trump's reputation will get somewhat hurt and he might get bitter towards crypto, right? He might want to regulate crypto again because he gets questions left and right that he's rug pulling all of his supporters. I'm not saying that this is the most likely scenario, but it's one potential scenario, right? Another potential scenario could be that maybe traditional finance is suddenly imploding, right? Currently, all the technology stocks are very, very expensive. The multiples are very high. Let's say we get a random banking crisis out of nowhere. Let's say the sales of NVIDIA GPUs suddenly crash, right? Then, of course, Bitcoin could also follow that. I'm just drawing potential scenarios for a correction at some point because we will see a correction. The question is just when. Now, here's something very interesting. So in black, we've got the long-term Bitcoin price. In orange, we've got the long-term market value to realized value. Now, what is that? The market value is simply the current price of Bitcoin times the number of Bitcoin that are in supply. The realized value is the average cost basis of the market. So we look at all the Bitcoin that have ever moved and we look at what price did the Bitcoin move. And so we get an average, right? We get the average of the market in aggregate. When did they buy and sell? What's the average cost basis? Are we currently 2x in profit for all of the people? Are we currently in losses? And we can see that in the first bull run in 2011, the market in aggregate was more than 8x 8x in profit. So that was for all of the holders. You didn't have to be better than anyone else, right? You simply just had to buy and hold Bitcoin and you got 8x in profit. Subsequently, the profit went down a little bit with each rally, right? Because the market cap of Bitcoin goes up and so the volatility goes down. It was a 6x for the market in aggregate in 2013, a 5x in 2017, a 4x in 2020, and a 3x in 2024. And those tops align quite nicely, right? They would tell a story that now the market might already be heated despite all of the bullishness. Now there's two potential adjustments we can make here. The first adjustment is that we look at the current volatility, as in since the volatility is going down over time, maybe the average profit in each rally will also go down. Thus, maybe we take the profit in relation to the current volatility. So that's adjustment number one. That's then the market value to realized value Z-score. Adjustment 2 that we can make is that instead of looking at the entire history of Bitcoin's existence, we just look at the last 1 year or at the last 2 years, simply because the market doesn't really remember that long, right? Are we really having that different of an anchor point if you bought Bitcoin, say 8 years ago or 6 years ago, and will your behavior really change that much if you're 20x or 30x in profit? Probably not. And so we can put more bias towards the recent past. And so we just look at how much is the market in aggregate in profit for a 2-year rolling Z-score. And here the peaks tend to be aligning quite nicely. So this is now this line in turquoise. It would tell us that we peaked in excitement in the middle of March of 2024. This is also where I sold some of my Bitcoin and how we're actually already declining in our momentum, at least in terms of relative growth. We can also go more short term. So this is now just the 1-year market value to realized value Z-score. Again, we tend to be peaking at very similar times. Again, in the middle of March, when Bitcoin was at around 70K, we have a peak and now we are going down. The best time to buy Bitcoin or to buy crypto in general is, of course, when there's a lot of despair, right? When people call crypto a scam, when FTX is collapsing or when Mt. Gox is defunct, etc. That's when we want to buy. And that is when the supply is in losses. So here we see how many Bitcoin are in losses, and this tends to be peaking again at very similar levels. Whenever this peaks at around 10 million, that's the perfect time to buy. We are, of course, very far away from this because Bitcoin hasn't been declining, but this is clearly a buying indicator, not necessarily a selling indicator, because if we were to sell whenever the market is not in losses, we might lose out on a lot of potential price appreciation. We can also have a look at the relative unrealized loss again. When we are low, we are in a bull market. When we are very high, we get potential entry opportunities. So overall, from a cycle perspective, right, from a macro view, it seems like we are still in a bull market. The only issue is that over time, we tend to get somewhat heated in some cryptocurrencies. Not necessarily in Bitcoin yet, because Bitcoin's dominance isn't that high, but Solana's dominance is already peaking quite a bit. It's always about risk versus reward. And of course, the potential reward is the highest when the market in aggregate is in losses, and the risk tends to creep up the longer we are in a bull market. When we are buying now at 100K, we're obviously buying high, but we probably can sell higher in the future as well. The only important thing is that there is a path towards selling, right? You don't want to be overexposed to Bitcoin or to crypto in general. Every bull market will turn around at some point, and we simply have to be prepared for this at any given point. I'm personally using two approaches. The first approach is the 120-day simple moving average. I talked about this several times on this channel. This is historically the moving average that worked the best. So I'm selling whenever the price of Bitcoin goes below the 120-day simple moving average. The second approach is I tend to sell whenever my portfolio allocation relative to other asset classes for crypto grows too high. So I don't want to be 80% in crypto if my net worth is several years of my income, right? You don't want to drop in like 2 or 3 years of income just because crypto corrects. Now, here's the thing. There are plenty of topics within crypto that aren't very sexy, but that are, I believe, very vital to make money long term. For example, concepts like correlation. What we see over here are correlation coefficients. Did you know, for example, that most altcoins tend to be more correlated with Ethereum than with Bitcoin? In other words, it's not when Bitcoin goes up that the altcoins go up as well. It's rather when Ethereum goes up, then the altcoins go up as well. Or did you know that the correlation coefficient attachment of the S&P 500 to Ethereum and thus the altcoin market is actually quite volatile. In other words, it does make sense to also own stocks, not just Ethereum, not just crypto. The common narrative is that when traditional markets go down, that crypto tends to go down as well, right? That crypto is simply just a levered bet on, say, technology stocks. That's not the case. The correlation coefficient is relatively close to zero. Or do you know the long-term expected returns of various asset classes, of say gold, of say the S&P 500, of Bitcoin, of altcoins? When we don't just own crypto, but we also own property, for example, and we've got that portfolio, what kind of returns do we need in order to beat monetary debasement, but also in order to at some point to get financially free? How much money do we need to have enough passive income to not having to work anymore? What are expected long-term returns, and how much should we actually allocate towards crypto and towards property, towards stocks, gold, bond, etc.? What actually makes sense? When there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars on the line, not having this properly nailed down is a huge problem. And when the market isn't that great anymore and the upside for Bitcoin could be somewhat limited, how can we still make money? How can we make money from charts like this? What we see over here is Balancer relative to Ethereum. We can make money by shorting this. Balancer has very bad tokenomics, the supply increases over time, and so it tends to do worse than Bitcoin and Ethereum over the long term. And we can make money from that, again, from the relative valuations, not just from US dollar valuations. When we look at how quickly is the monetary base expanding, and we put this into relationship to how quickly are salaries increasing, we actually see that pretty much everybody is falling behind over time. And this is not just true for the poor people, this is even true for the top 5% of earners. By the way, if you earn $500,000 per year, then you are in the top 5%. But yeah, data like this is useful. And those are not necessarily the sexy topics that work well on YouTube, right? On YouTube, it's the 100x altcoin gems that get all the clicks. But when you talk about diversification and correlation, etc., people just fall asleep. But it's the long-term planning, the long-term proper allocation towards different asset classes that actually make the difference. And so have a look at all of this. Those are tutorial videos of the premium membership of this channel. It's down below, thebitcointrader.com. There's more than 100 tutorial videos in total. What are my favorite crypto macro indicators? How do interest rates impact different asset classes? We've just seen how the market got spooked because the Federal Reserve might get more hawkish. Or how do we adjust our returns for risk mathematically, right? Everybody can get more returns by increasing the risk massively, but the idea is we want to get the best returns for the risk. And so there are ways to calculate this using alpha and beta. Those are all very complex topics, but I strongly believe that it's the skilled people, the people that have most knowledge, that tend to make most money over time. Now, besides all of those tutorial videos, there are also various chats in premium where I try to be active as well. So in case you've got any questions, just tag me in a message in those premium chats and I try to reply. The membership is currently $165 US per month. This is not for people that only have a net worth of $1,000, right? This is for people that actually have to manage wealth in the tens of thousands, preferably even hundreds of thousands of dollars. There is a 1-week money back guarantee as well. So in case you don't like premium, just message me within the first week and I refund you 100%. There's really zero risk for you. Now, if it's your first time here, feel free to subscribe. I publish videos regularly. A like would be very much appreciated as well. It helps the channel grow. See you in the next video or see you in premium. Cheers.